And we are live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this most illustrious live stream with a wonderful crew of people here joining us to celebrate the release of Tao Wong's newest book, which I will show off right here. The latest addition to the 1,000 Lee series, the fourth fall, book 11, because he writes a lot and he's a fucking madman and he's very talented. But first of all, congratulations, buddy, on the new release.
Thank you.
We're all very proud of you. And I'll just go around and ask everybody to introduce themselves. And in case you don't know, we'll start with Tao because he's the man of the hour. Go ahead, bud.
Hi guys, it's Tao Wong. I write 1,000 Lee, which, as we've said, has released book 11, which is the penultimate book of the series. So one more, and then the series will be finished at last. It's been something I've been writing about for 4 years now, I guess. Yeah, it's about 2019, so 5 years now. Yeah, and I'm very happy to be here with some great people and friends.
Yeah, we're happy to be here. I'm just like very jealous because you wrote 11 books in 5 years, not to mention the other books and other series.
Never mind the other series.
Time. Oh my god. Julia, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Julia Vee. I'm just a friend of Tao. Like I'm watching him build his empire, you know, as he's like amassing series after series. Like I pulled up book 1 and I like looked at the copyright date. I was like 2019, no way.
It is
Julia's also,
but Julia's also a very talented author.
Yes, and she has some really good work, you know, which has been tried published, which I haven't done, and she works with Ken, who's a good friend as well, and her book is called.
I'm very fortunate to be able to write with my childhood friend, like 30 years later after. First writing very terrible sword and sorcery. We used to like exchange our stories on a 5 1/4 floppy disk, and now we have a trilogy which will be complete July of 2025. It's released with Tor, and the last book in the trilogy is called Pearl City.
And book 1 is Ebony Gate.
Yes.
And book 2 is Blood Jade.
Blood Jade.
Blood Jade is my favorite title.
Blood Jade,
because it's just super ominous. And we'll introduce Arun.
I don't know, like there's nothing worthwhile to be said of me, unfortunately. Like 40 years of life, and I can't think of anything significant that I could say about me, other than the fact that I'm a huge fan of Tao Wong's books. I consumed his System Apocalypse books. I don't know. I literally inject those into my veins, like if they come in liquid form. And now it's like 1,000 Lee books. Again, such a huge fan. I just love his writing, the way he just keeps the reader occupied even after 11 books, which is, I don't know, personally, I think it's a huge feat. Like, yeah, even when it comes to TV shows, you just can't say there are too many shows which are really good after the first 3 or 4 seasons. If you compare that to books, like keeping someone occupied for 11 books is something I personally find spectacular.
Yes.
But yeah.
It was also amazing that he got to use the word penultimate. Like it was such a flex.
Right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a bittersweet moment for me to be on the launch party for this book, because I'm like actually super happy to read this book. At the same time, I know that the ending is, I don't know, the end is nigh, given the System Apocalypse vibes, like the world's ending, like, yeah. But yeah, it's pretty good. I'm also like a reviewer at like FanFiAddict. I don't know, whenever I just get off my lazy ass couch, force myself to write some reviews. Usually it's about Tao's books, but yeah, in general, that's it about me. Back to you, Adrian.
He's the exclusive Tao Wong reviewer on FanFiAddict. Well, yeah, I'm hosting this thing, so I'll introduce myself last. My name is Adrian M. Gibson. I am if you're watching the FanFiAddict YouTube channel, you've seen me a shit ton of times because I host SFF Addicts with MJ Kuhn, among other things. And then I'm also the author of Mushroom Blues, this funky little fungal noir book right here. And it's November, so it's Noirvember now.
Oh, nice.
But then
Yes,
you can just
that's
like
true.
add mushrooms to the mix as well, and you'll be all set. But yeah, that's me. I'm just very excited to hang out with these fine folks, and we're just gonna shoot the shit and talk about writing, talk about the series, all this kind of stuff. But I want to ask Tao first. How do you feel, 5 years later, looking back on how the series started, and then now, like Arun said, it's like the end is nigh. Terrible
Yeah.
things are going to happen. This series is almost going to come to a close.
It's nice. It's always nice to be able to finish a series, and to see see what your initial vision is that you started out with come true, right? It's never exactly the same as what you thought it was. It literally isn't. I actually have little file folders inside each of my series that goes on too long, which is titled If Tao Dies, Ending.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, we're like 6 minutes in. You just got so bleak.
You know what?
I feel so behind on my estate planning now. Like I didn't go into my file folders to be like, here's the end of all our books.
Well, but when I've got like, you're writing a 12-book series, you're like, maybe just in case. So I write this last, ending scene of how I feel it should end, right? Because I normally know what my ending is for most books and most series. And so I'll write that. And then when I finish the series, I always look back and go, oh, this does not look, I mean, the tone and the point and the goal is there, but the way you write it is so different. And it's because, you've added more things in between. And I often think it's better, but it's a little bit of a funny thing to look back at, what you've written and go, oh, hey, this worked out, this didn't, this I never expected to happen. But you know what? It became part of the main story.
Yeah, I also think it's like such a great service to complete something. I feel like fantasy fans are so they've got burned a couple times, and so now everyone's a little nervous if a series is unfinished, and so knowing it's done is also a powerful incentive for someone to start a series, right?
There's like a big thing going around on X recently where people were like, I don't know where it started exactly, but it was more or less like getting a general gauge from the community about like, would you be willing to start a series if it wasn't finished, kind of thing. And this was like a thing that was going around as like a question, as polls and that kind of thing. I don't know, Arun or Tao, did you see this as well?
Yeah, I do. Like honestly, it's a 50-50 gamble. So for one, I've read some of the unfinished series. I mean, I don't want to name other authors, but then it's pretty obvious whom we are talking about. But for example,
they have millions of dollars at this point. It doesn't matter.
I just go in. Let's take, for example, King Killer, like Pat Rothfuss. I have literally no idea it's ever going to get finished. But still, the first 2 books which I have read has made such a huge impression on me that I feel privileged to have read that series. I honestly, at this point, I don't really care if it gets finished or not. I'd be the happiest person if it gets finished. But even if it doesn't, the experience of reading those first 2 books was pretty spectacular for me. So that kind of like set the trend for me that it doesn't matter if the series doesn't get finished. I'm happy to dive into those first book or the second book, as long as the book itself provides a good experience for me, like immersive experience for me. I've read series of books, like I don't know, like another unnamed author. First 5 books spectacular. I just loved the series. Next 5 books atrocious. He was just trying to get out of the series, and it was just really bad. It just ruined my memories of the first 5 books. So it's kind of like stop predicting the future, just be in the flow. As long as the first book you read it, you like it, I mean, goal fulfilled, right? You don't need a series. Like that book is good enough. That's my, I don't know. That's my take on this.
Right, but then there's the kind of thing where it's like, do you even start the series? So how do you know if the first book is good, at least for you personally, if your determination before even starting it is like, oh, this series is unfinished, so I'm not gonna even dive in, right? Because it's like you're missing the opportunity to start a series based on the fact that it's unfinished. But then, like, Arun, you started King Killer Chronicles, you read the first 2 books. The series is still not finished yet, but it left a lasting impression on you. But how would you have known before reading the first book or continuing on to the second if it was capable of leaving that lasting impression on you, right?
It's kind of like watching a TV show. I mean, like, how many shows do you watch and enjoy that gets cancelled after a couple of seasons?
Like Netflix.
That doesn't
I was
really
say
mean
that's
shit
like
lately.
Netflix MO right now.
Yeah,
2 seasons.
exactly.
It's really good, really highly rated, and then we're gonna fucking cancel it.
If people are saying that they're going to watch the show only after all the seasons have been done, you're never going to watch anything. You're probably going to watch like 1 out of every 100 series out there. It doesn't really mean like I mean like
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's. I mean, looking at Netflix as an MO, just watching, all of these great series that they canceled. Brother Sung, My Lady Jane got canceled. It's just, and looking at them, going, these are great series. Why are you canceling them? You're one
At
season
least
in.
at least with the brother's son though, it was like very satisfying the way it ended. So I
They
felt
were
like
smart.
like they left it open. You could see there would be more like adventures in Taiwan with the triads and Michelle Yeoh, but like I was okay with the ending. And the only thing is I felt like Charles's romantic life did not get resolved. And for me, I still always love the romantic beeline,
Have any of you seen the show Warrior?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that show like actually
it needs
canceled?
another season.
Right. That's one of those ones where I'm like, fuck, that is not
that
okay.
absolutely needs another season.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm actually finally catching up on that. I feel so bad that it's taken me so long because it wasn't on any of the major ones that I had. So I finally gave in and bought Crave up in Canada here. So just so that I could watch that and some others. But yeah, I mean, for me,
yeah, I started it on Max, which I guess before it went to Netflix.
It's not
Yeah, I think I saw it on Netflix. Yeah. It might not be on Netflix in Canada.
Yeah, if they put it on Netflix, it would make my life so much easier. I've watched it already, but I'm watching it with my son right now, and he's. At first, I was like, I don't know if you should be watching this.
I'm not sure that's totally age appropriate, like, because your son's younger than my son.
You know what? He's been watching, highly sexualized content for a while.
So you're just leaning into it, whatever.
I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like my kids have a high capacity to watch like violent horror, like Attack on Titan, which I find terrifying and cannot watch. Right?
But
I think there's a new show coming on, which I'm actually looking forward to. The one with like Jimmy Yang.
Oh yeah, Interior Chinatown.
Chinatown.
Yeah, it's based on the Booker Prize winning novel Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu, and so Jimmy Yang stars as the protagonist in this.
Oh,
this
that
show.
one! Yes. I saw that. That looks interesting. I'll have to see how it comes out. There's some really good work coming out now. I'm so glad, especially
the one that killed me though was when I can't remember which network picked it up, but the Greenbone Saga, and then they dropped
Peacock.
it, and I was like, you.
I know. I was so excited when I watched the sizzle reel, because like Fonda shared it one day on Twitter, and then and then that project died, and I was so sad.
I have foul words for Peacock. They don't deserve the Greenbone Saga.
It doesn't cost that much. It's one of those where it's like, it's just urban fantasy with some special effects.
Yeah, I think like the special effects isn't isn't too far from the special effects that are really prevalent in like martial arts and Hong Kong
Yeah,
cinema.
but it's
Yeah.
Because
kind of like a period piece too, like
yeah,
Warrior, right? Like it's
yeah.
kind of like early 20th century or
Like
late
80s. I would like
19th
even say like
century.
1970s, 1980s
Yeah.
kind of thing. So it's like you
I
could
thought it
basically
was
take
set
like
like in the 50s or something.
nah, they have
If
like
I
cars and
always
like
felt like it was in the 50s,
They
I
had
agree.
cars
and
in the
stuff.
50s.
No, I know, but like the technology of like the technology level, it's like the TVs, those kinds of things felt to me more like 1980s, like Hong Kong kind of cinema vibes.
I always felt it was more, yeah, closer to 1950s, just like Julie. But I mean, really, the story doesn't have to be. If it was a cost thing, they didn't have to pin it down to that. You know, you could adjust it. You know,
Yeah. I feel like with the studio, it can be mysterious because you don't know, like to make a show, there's so many steps, right, between the
Yeah,
producers and the studio. You don't know where the breakdown happens, right?
yeah.
yeah,
They might not have been able to get a star that they wanted on it, which is quite often some of the things that's like, okay, we don't have the talent to go and sell this, and then it never gets anywhere.
yeah. But I feel like they could have got some really good talent for that, regardless. Like
There
like
was
some
plenty of
some fresh
talent
faces.
available.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, like an unfinished series is probably a series which gets a TV adaptation. I'm kind of like super scared to watch it if I read the book. Because for one, I really want it to be good. I really want it to stay true to the book. I don't want the TV show to have its own creative stuff. I mean, like, it's a great book. People are there to watch an adaptation of the book. We don't want your creativity. Just stick true to the book. But at the same time, like, I don't know, like, I don't know. For me, it looks like the success rate for a successful adaptation is probably like, I don't know, like 1 in 25 or a 1 in 50. It's
I
not really
feel
great.
like,
I've seen,
yeah,
yeah.
I feel like that depends on the medium, right? Like if the
Yeah.
adaptation came from manga, it's usually terrible to see a live action rendition.
Oh God,
Right?
yeah. What was like the Death Note? Death Note.
One Piece, like
One
just
Piece. Even
Cowboy
Avatar:
Bebop.
The Last Airbender.
Yeah, just the live action doesn't hit quite the same.
Yeah, but I think there are some that have worked really well. Like I don't know, there's a very fine line between when it comes to adaptations, whether it's like you stick really close to the source material and it just doesn't work because the source material is textual and that isn't the perfect translation from textual to visual mediums. Like there are
Yeah,
certain
like
things that you have like just because of the medium, it's like you kind of have to change certain aspects of it. Like I really enjoyed the first season of Silo, which was like the adaptation of Hugh Howey's Wool, and that
yes,
was really good because they stuck to sort of like the
the
broader framework
spirit.
and the
Yeah.
spirit of it. But then there were certain things where they changed based on the fact that it's a television medium, and it worked really well in that case too. But
Yeah,
then
that's
there are
how I
other ones
felt.
where it's like Wheel of Time was a dumpster fire. But like,
Yeah, I like the adaptation of Ready Player One. Like the book is
yeah,
about solving puzzles, but the movie is much more action oriented, which is good for that medium, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Ready Player One, yeah, it was a different thing, but I think it worked for what it was. Actually, the one
Exactly.
that comes to mind that of an adaptation is Lucifer, that was
oh
insanely
yeah,
successful for what it is. But it is beyond the basic concept of devil in LA, playing in a bar. It's completely different from what the graphic novel is. But
hmm
they're both really good things. They're just just diverged from one another to fit the medium. And
hmm
I don't actually have a problem when you take the core concept and you play with it, because I think Jim Butcher mentioned it when he was looking at the Dresden Files and TV show, and he says, just think of it as an alternate universe Dresden Files. It doesn't, you don't have
I
to get
liked that
too.
TV show. I remember watching it,
Oh man,
when
he
it
told me
came
he
out.
was so bummed that it got canceled. Speaking of cancellations,
I mean, I
like,
enjoyed it. I enjoyed the cast. I thought it was a good show.
I
And it
you
know.
was
know, you
different. It was different
right,
than the books. Yeah.
yeah. But you know what he told me? He is trying to get it adapted into an anime
Oh, I would love
by the
that.
studio that made Castlevania.
Oh,
which
Oh, that's
for me was just like, oh god, that is like
so good.
perfect pairing. I don't know for like Tao or Julia, like if you could have your books adapted, because for me, like I look at Mushroom Blues and I'm like anime,
Oh,
100%,
100%. I've
100%
told my
anime.
co-author Ken this too, right? Like I look at a product like Arcane, it's
Yeah.
amazing, and I always feel like a fantasy action adventure like Ebony Gate would probably do better
Hmm.
in anime than it would in live action,
Yeah.
you know.
I actually want a
Especially with
Thousand
all like
League
the
in
yokai and
live
stuff like
action.
that.
You want a Thousand League White? Oh, well, I guess like it has that Crouching Tiger kind of
It's
vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it will work well in live action. I mean, the power levels kind of get to the point where it's kind of a problem.
Nice too.
I
But
can see it. Like this does
yeah,
actually lend
But
itself
Tao,
to
I will say, because your series is like progression fantasy, cultivation fantasy, television would be a perfect fit for it. Because a
yeah, because you could
movie,
go a whole
um,
season,
yeah,
right?
oh,
that kind of progression over the course of a whole season. Like I think that's why Avatar worked so well. Like the original animated
yeah,
Avatar: The Last Airbender is because like that series is a progression fantasy, and it's like it works so well because of the stages that it takes over the course of an entire
yeah.
season.
I have 12. I'm gonna have 12 books. 12 seasons. That I'm
Yeah.
okay with 12
There
seasons.
you go.
Even
Producers
if
out
it were
there.
like 4 seasons, right? Because for each
Yeah,
trilogy,
yeah,
that's like
Yeah.
See, for
yeah.
me, when I read like a Thousand Lee, it kind of feels to me that anime would be like a much better medium. And every time I read Thousand Lee, it kind of reminds me of like Samurai Champloo. I don't know if you've seen
Ooh.
that shows in there,
I have. That's so good.
but that's kind of like a very poetic animated version of. It's not really like a standard like a I don't know like a Crouching Tiger or like a one of those old Jet Li movies like Once Upon a Time in China kind of like movies. Samurai Champloo is kind of like a poetic, like visually superb rendition. It doesn't stay true to the medium or the way the book's written, but then Tao's work kind of like the way the language he uses is borders on kind of like philosophical slash poetic. So I don't know, like something like a Samurai Champloo, kind of like an animated show. I thought would be like a really good adaptation for this. On the other hand, Ebony Gate is probably like an I don't know, like a proper urban. I don't know, like I don't know, like
I mean, it
Dresden
is set in
Files,
San
like
Francisco, so it's
Yeah.
absolutely
it is.
an urban fantasy. And like the cover for book 3 has Coit Tower on it. So clearly
Yeah.
it's like real world anchors, right, for this series.
So you basically just have one filming location, San
Yes,
Francisco, and that's
yes.
it.
Yeah,
That's us
Absolutely.
keeping the budgetary considerations in
Right.
mind for our
That's the thing for like
adaptation.
for Mushroom Blues, I'm like, man, if this was anything but an anime or like an animated adaptation, God, the costuming and like the just like the set design and all that, it's like
That's actually
that.
one of the things that I wonder if like it holds Warrior back from getting another season is because it is a period piece, and it's really well done, right? It's
yeah,
early San Francisco,
Right.
in the late 1800s, and so it has like a heavy costume component, right, for a period piece.
yeah.
True. But then again, like the locations are pretty like there's a pretty like confined set of locations for the most part, at least when they're inside San Francisco.
I feel like any show filmed in or saying that they're in San Francisco is usually in Vancouver.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah,
almost every
definitely.
show I've ever seen that says they're in San Francisco, I'm like, that's Vancouver.
Right. That's what I like movies too. That's like any city in a movie where they're like, "Oh, this is New York or Chicago." I'm like, "No, that's downtown Vancouver." Like
I am.
Superman, that's Vancouver. Or Toronto. Like Toronto shows up a lot as an analog for like any North American city.
I have having lived in both of them for so long now. I'm like, I can pick that. I know that. I walk down that street.
Yeah.
I'm just
I
like,
remember
this is
I
not-
remember watching, did any of you ever see the show Fringe?
Yes, I like
Yes.
that
yes,
show. It
Such a
was
good show.
ostensibly Boston, right?
Right, but I remember like the headquarters for I can't remember like which governmental agency that they were working for. Um anyways, that's not important. Like the main headquarters of like the government agency that they were working for was the Vancouver Public Library. And so like it threw me out so hard anytime they did like here's our establishing shot of we're at the headquarters now, and I'm like, That's like where I would go to like study or do research for papers and stuff like that. Like it just completely threw me out of this show that I absolutely love. I'm
It's
like,
funny though, like movie magic. Like Ken and I took one of the last in-person story events with Robert McKee down in LA, and he pointed out that in Casablanca, where they're like flying down and landing, that's
mhm.
Pasadena Airport, right?
It looks enough like Northern Africa.
Sure,
Sure,
close enough.
whatever.
It works. You
But I
don't
think
know
that's the
about
thing.
that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think majority of production studios, they're just like, yeah, it's close enough, you know? Because there's so like it's so difficult to say like, oh, we're gonna go shoot in Morocco or something like that, you know? Whereas
Yeah.
like all the studio stuff is happening in California. They're like, can we get like a desert that's like desert-y enough with like some palm trees and shit and just like make it work? Because
Well,
I don't know how many people in there, like how they assume how many people in our audience are going to catch that, right? Like how many people are going to watch Fringe and think like, oh, that's the Vancouver Public Library. You know, it's pretty low the amount of people that are actually going to
yeah.
be
I mean, I think most things are filmed now in like Atlanta. Actually,
There's a
that's like
lot,
a big
actually.
hub for Hollywood
like all the
filming.
Marvel stuff. I think is down there.
Yeah. And have you guys seen the original Blade movie?
Oh, so
Mm.
It's
good.
filmed in Romania, I think.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That's
like
badass.
apparently the Romanian government is like, go ahead and blow up all these things. It's fine. Like it was like really easy to get permits, you know.
Underworld, the Cape
Beckinsale.
Beckinsale, yeah, Cape Beckinsale's one was all shot in Eastern Europe. I think it might be Romania, one of those
Yeah, and maybe
countries.
Game of Thrones was also filmed in Romania or Bulgaria. It's like Eastern Europe where some of that
There's
took
a
place.
bunch of stuff that was filmed in Croatia. Um, like all the stuff at King's Landing. Actually, like I was in Croatia. This is when I was living in Berlin. Like we would just go off on like vacations every once in a while. Um, and it was like from Berlin to Croatia was about an hour and a half flight.
Nice.
So I was like, yeah, like let's do it, you know? So we went to Split and Dubrovnik. And in both cities, Dubrovnik is basically like King's Landing.
Fancy.
They like converted basically like that city looks like a castle and they just basically like added stuff on with visual effects to make it look bigger. But like all the shots of like stairs and people walking through streets and stuff like that, all of that is in Dubrovnik. And Split, like they had a bunch of tours. They're like, I think 5 different Game of Thrones tours. And I was like, what is this
That's
shit? Like
amazing.
we didn't even know before we went there. And then we went and then there's like, do you want to go to, I think there's like a scene, spoilers for Game of Thrones, whatever. Where there's a scene where uh Daenerys Targaryen is like freeing a bunch of slaves. And it's like this it's like this city that almost like looks like it's on like the edge of like a mining pit or something like that.
Yes.
And that was just shot at a mine outside of Split.
Oh,
And
so
they have
Split is the name of the city. It's not a
Split is the
region.
no,
Ah, okay.
so it's like Split. It's just like the word Split is the name of this town, but it's really beautiful. But there's this tour where it's like they take you on a bus. We didn't actually go because it's like this didn't really sound very appealing. They took you on a bus and they take you to like what is essentially this like old like this like gravel pit mine, and they just tell you about the things that the showrunners and the producers and stuff like did to make this look like this. And I'm like, that doesn't sound very interesting because you're going to like a gravel pit to be told stuff that was done with VFX in a TV
I think
show.
it's
To me, it's kind
amazing
of
like
like, huh.
how a show or a movie can be so popular and have such a profound impact on a
Mhm.
community. Like when I was in Scotland, we went to Rosslyn Chapel and they said Da Vinci Code single-handedly like paid for the restoration of that chapel
Wow.
because it was a landmark in the movie, spoiler,
Is
Da
that
Vinci Code.
is that the chapel that he goes to at the very end?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a like
Okay.
one of the clues is in Rosslyn Chapel. It has to do with like the Templars, right?
The bloodline of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and so when we did our tour there, because I took my family there before we went to Worldcon in Glasgow, and they pointed out like the whole visitor center that got built, like the restoration of this beautiful chapel, like it was all tourist money that was because people had seen it in the Da Vinci Code and wanted to come see the place.
Da Vinci Code mega fan.
If you ever go down to Oxford, there's like 1,000,001 tours for Harry Potter these days, and it's just like, oh god.
Oh, and when I was in Edinburgh, there was like those Outlander tours, right? Because that show is amazingly popular, and the books were incredibly popular. Right?
I've had some friends who's Rachel McLean. She writes thrillers, murder mysteries, set in the UK, and she's had people go to her, some of the places in Cornwall, looking for specific shops, and then you'll contact her, goes, oh yeah, I went to this specific shop, and it's exactly as how you described it, and she's like very chuffed because these are small villages, towns and whatnot. So she's driving traffic there, so she's quite happy.
Rika said the same thing, that like people look for the restaurants and the donut shop and the things referenced in her book, right? So I think that's pretty fun.
Yeah,
it is like a certain level of fandom, though. Go ahead, Arun.
I just want to say that you can't say this and not mention like New Zealand and the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's like an entire country whose tourism nearly doubled because of like one series of movies.
And it still goes today.
It's still
But the thing is, I think New Zealand tourism, though, like I've seen the stuff that like the tours and things that they offer, that to me is way more appealing because it's like you can go and visit Hobbiton, and I'm like,
yeah, and it's like outdoors, right?
Right. But it's like I would actually love to go to Bilbo's house.
I actually saw
everything.
I saw the scenery in Scotland in the Isle of Skye that inspired Hobbiton and the Shire. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's like these land formations that cause these ripples in the mountainside or the hillside. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, Scotland's just gorgeous.
Well, Skye was like next level. Like, I mean, Isle of Skye was like unreal. Everywhere you looked was like so cinematic. It was crazy.
I didn't go to Skye. I went to Oban and Mull and the Isle of so all
is Mull like the outer Isles, right?
Yeah, the outer Isles area. And it was really beautiful out that way, and less touristy.
Honestly, I loved Scotland so much. I've been researching like how to relocate there. So I spent a month there this August, and I convinced my whole family like we need to relocate there, and they were actually like on board. They were like, "Yeah, it is really nice here, Mom."
Yeah.
Well, Glasgow is so cheap for buying houses and everything. I'm like, I could buy a place there and living in Toronto.
Don't even where, need to live in Glasgow. You could have like a nice little country house.
Yeah,
because it's not even that far.
Although I would be terrified to drive there, like driving on the other side of the road. I was like, I don't know how people are doing this.
It's fine. We did a road trip up from with Crystal Matar, her husband, and Taylor from the BookTube channel Made Between the Pages. We drove up from London to Glasgow.
Oh, you guys drove? You didn't take the train?
No, we had a road trip. We stayed in Birmingham for a night and visited everyone from the Broken Binding.
Nice.
And Stephen Ryan and some other people that live in Birmingham. And everyone was like, why the fuck are you going to Birmingham? It's like, that place is a shithole. It was like, I mean, our experience was very localized, where we were just like going out for dinner and going to the pub and stuff like that. And then after that, we drove up to Glasgow and stopped on the way in the Lake District, which is really beautiful.
It was, I really liked southern Scotland. It was really pretty. Yeah.
The
like the lowlands.
Is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Did you get good weather at the Lake District or?
It was a little bit rainy on the way up, but It wasn't that bad, all things considered. Like we stopped in
That's
like some random little
that's
town
pretty
called
much the
Pendle.
Lake District, though. It's
Yeah.
always a little bit rainy. But
Yeah,
what I
it was
love
a little
about
drizzly.
going there is that sometimes you get those breaks in the clouds, and then
Mhm.
you get these shafts of light, like you see in those Renaissance paintings. It's just like a beam of light hitting the ground, and then like you get 4 or 5 of them, and they're just moving, and it'll be shadows everywhere, and
Yeah.
it's just like this is a painting. This is not real, but obviously it is.
But I grew up in British Columbia, so I'm very spoiled. So I'm like, yeah, like mountain, like super beautiful scenic mountain lakes and stuff. It's like British Columbia is probably like the closest you can get to Lord of the Rings landscapes in North America, like British Columbia and Alaska. And so I feel very spoiled having come from British Columbia and then going to other places. I'm just like, huh, like a little bit underwhelmed, but Scotland was gorgeous. I do agree.
Yeah, every part of Scotland that we saw, I was like a fan. You know, we went further north, and everywhere where we went, I was like, this is amazing here. And then we went south, and I was like, wow, this is great too. Right? So,
I mean, south to a certain point. It's like you go too far south and then you're in England again.
well, no,
And
I didn't want to be in England.
So Tom, like, was that an inspiration? I don't know, maybe 2 books before in the Thousand Days series. I kind of felt the setting went to Mongolia, or kind of like a rural landscape, which is like
Yeah.
wilderness, like prairies, mountains, kind of like
I was definitely
natives.
pulling from Mongolia for when I went up north for book 8, which is the expedition book where he runs around uh, to all the different locations. I was trying to pull from all the different geographies that are relatively close to um, well, current China kind of thing, because part of his journey during that book is seeing all these places and experiencing different cultures and different places and learning about them and himself within that context itself. A lot of that will, in book 11, we see some of the after effects of him running around from, book 6, 7 to 9. He's consolidated himself very much. And then book 10, he comes back. Book 11, we start seeing some of the after effects of him rising up so fast. And some of the issues with that, as well as the, well, that's the B plot kind of thing. The overt plot is obviously the battle where is the conflict with the Kingdom of Kai and dealing with the politics across 3 kingdoms, and being powerful enough where he's actually a player, which is a very different thing from the book that Julia is flashing around, where he's just kind of being thrown around by everyone.
I do feel like that is very true to like the characters arc, like Jing Yong in Legend of the Condor,
yeah,
right?
I was gonna ask about like your kind of like wuxia influences.
Funnily enough, I actually pulled more from things like Return of the Condor Hero and his Proud Wandering Hero, actually, which is in the movies, it's Swordsman 1 and 2. I pull more from those rather than Return the Condor Heroes, the original one. I actually read Return of the Condor Heroes first before I actually read Condor Heroes, which is strange. I actually never watched it. I've never actually watched a single Condor Hero remake TV show, which is very strange considering there's 7 of them out there right now.
Yeah, I have the Blu-ray version from I think the 1986 one.
When was the first one made?
And they're doing another
Gosh.
one too.
Because the books were written quite a long time ago.
I would say like
1940s,
didn't he
50s?
start in like 1969 or something, and it was
Yeah,
a serial that he did for years, right?
Yeah, I think it was 69 or something like that. And then, so he's probably the first one was like early 70s, probably, maybe, no, probably mid 70s.
Yeah,
I don't know.
mid 70s. it's kind of mind-boggling, but I had read that something like 300 million copies of Legend of the Condor
It's like
heroes.
one of the best-selling books of all time.
Oh,
Like
yeah, and
best-selling
it's got the
series.
manhwa and like all these other adaptations. And when you start peeling back and asking like our parents' generation about it, not that many actually read it. Many of them watched some of the TV
Yeah.
adaptations.
It's like every generation seems to have their generation, their adaptation of the Legend of the Condor Heroes. For some reason, the return doesn't get done as much, which makes me kind of sad. But that's more of a pure love story too, in some ways, compared to Legend. I feel
I guess
it's
the American equivalent would be like Batman. Every generation has like their own Batman,
Yeah.
right? Their own Batman
What they're
remake.
what they're trying to do now by like remaking shows that I think on like a zeitgeist level, people are like, you don't need to remake that. Like you don't need to. HBO doesn't need to make a new Harry Potter series. People are like, no, we're fine with the movies. But don't know. Like maybe these production studios are learning something from like how many like fucking Godzilla movies came out like every 3, 4, 5 years, you know? Or
yeah.
how many Batman movies come out? I think it's like at least there's a new Batman like duology or trilogy or something at least like every 10 years.
Yeah, but I think something like Godzilla, for example, they actually adapt the story like to current situations, which is
Yeah.
interesting, right? The idea is you got a big monster, but all of the context around Godzilla changes, which is I think it's more interesting than a straight, hey, we're going to do Batman's origin story again. Or Spider-Man, which is another one that they do
Yeah.
with his new origin story again.
How many times do we need to see him bitten by a spider or see Batman's parents shot in an alleyway? It's
Hmm.
like make this a little more interesting. I
But
just want to shout out Grimalati, currently on book 10 of the System Apocalypse series.
oh, nice.
Deep in it.
Book 10 of collaborations. Oh, you're beginning at the end of that series where the quest becomes much more uh, focused. That's when the system quest really bites, and John's going even more rogue than normal. Like John, and it's funny writing the two series concurrently because John's this giant, John Lee in System Apocalypse is just this giant ball of rage. That's all he is, really. He's just a very, very, very angry man who just doesn't know how to let go. You know, he's like the opposite of a well-established, a functional hero that is not him. And then I'm writing Wu Ying on the other side of it, who's trying his best to become a very functional, balanced human being. Who's thinking about the Tao and who's thinking about the way and how societies and individuals and people work together, and how he can fit within all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And finding a Taoist principle. And so when I was writing the two of them, it was always, and I'd write one and then I'd write another one. And
He's at 90.1%.
oh yeah,
But I think that's something that like, I don't know, Julia, if you've experienced this where like, because you and Ken have multiple series together, if you are able to sort of better balance like your creative, how would I put this? Like your creative engagement with certain things. Like from my perspective, it would feel really tiring to be like, I'm just going to write every single book in the Hoffman Report series, one after the other. Like I'm like, I put out Mushroom Blues. My next book is set in the same world, but it's a totally different story. And then I'm going to jump back and forth between them and then start writing and releasing other stuff. Cause I feel like if I just went full with like one series, I would get so burnt out.
I think it's like a natural stress response, right? Like the project that you're on is taking up all of your creative energy. And
Yeah.
as a way of relieving stress, you think about the other project that is kind of, you know, swirling around in the back of your brain. And Ken and I have this acronym. We call it working on the wrong book, right? So we will sometimes email each other because like we're fantasizing about what it would be like to write this other book because we're under stressed on the book that we are currently writing.
Do you actually write the other book though?
We have a brain dump document in Google Docs where we like just put in all this stuff so that we don't forget it, right?
See, I think it's a very interesting perspective. I think all three of you are authors, pretty much successful in your own right. Me, I'm just purely a reader. Like, I don't claim to understand how easy or how difficult it is to write a series, far less like write one book, far less a series of books. But as a reader, I kind of sometimes get immensely frustrated when an author leaves a series half done and then he takes like a break of like 2 years, 4 years, and then he starts writing a different series. And then, I mean, it's a valid reason. I can understand how the author feels. But then as a reader, yeah, I mean, you would find the same feeling across multiple social media forums. It's immensely frustrating. You just look at an author, he keeps pumping books, just not the books you want to be reading. It's like a brand new series. And I was like, oh my God, like, yeah, if you can write that series, why can't you write this series? That's like a kind of like a very layman, idiotic take on the whole thing. But then as a reader, like, I kind of would be like, please, as an author, just write this series. Let's finish this. Let's move on. And then you could have your fun with something else.
But then I think something like self-publishing is where that that sort of feeling that you have as a reader, and like I totally understand, self-publishing allows for much more rapid succession across multiple series. So I look at someone like what Tao's doing, or my friend Rob Hayes. Rob has done a very good job of writing multiple series concurrently, but bouncing back and forth between which one he's writing at any given time. And I don't think he goes any longer than like a year, maybe like a little, between like a year and a half between installments. So it's like you'll get something in a series that you like within a relatively reasonable span of time. It's not like you have to wait 2 years between each one. You know, you can get a new sequel to Titan Hoppers, or you can get like a new Mortal Techniques book, and he releases them sort of like one and then the other and then the other and then the other, and it's never really that long between each one. So I think self-publishing sort of alleviates that sort of feeling for readers, but then traditional publishing is like, yeah, you have no control. So like,
Oh,
I was going to say
yeah.
though, um, relatively fast is never fast enough. I don't know if you must have gotten it by now, Adrian, where, I'm sure if I looked inside, there's someone already who's commented, where's book 12?
it's like I just released my debut novel and you're already asking about like what am I writing next? Like, god damn it, man.
It was there in my review, Tao. I just did a review of like book 11 and I ended up with like, where's book 12?
Yeah.
So fucking
Yeah,
demanding.
people are like, the moment that they want the book right now, the moment they're finished it. It's just like,
It's true. I got so many messages at the end of Bloodjade where they were like, how are you expecting us to wait a year? And I was like, I don't control the production schedule, but
Right.
like I turned in the drafts, and then Tor has a very long production cycle.
yeah.
I kind of feel like normal fantasy readers, they have a much wider tolerance to books. I mean, they expect books like an year to an 18 months, it's pretty much okay. But when it comes to LitRPG or like Cultivation, adjacent books, you have multiple authors who release 2 to 3 books a year, like Defiance of the Fall, He Who Fights with Monsters, even Dungeon Crawler Call. You get like at least like 2 to 3 books a year. I mean, the average time span between books is probably like 7 to 8 months. And that's like an extremely hard and I don't know, like an extremely competitive time frame for every other author to meet. And I don't know, being so popular I kind of get a feel that sets the expectation. People do expect like, hey, if like three of the most popular authors in LitRPG right now can release a book in 8 months, that should be the norm. Well, it obviously
I
isn't.
thought it was even more like they come from Royal Road or people's Patreons, and so they're used to getting like an installment twice a week.
Oh,
Oh
it is.
God.
Like I
With,
need my fix in Royal Road. I'm still a huge fan. And I,
yeah,
I was like a Patreon of like 6 different authors till I had to pull back to afford my mortgage. But yeah.
but yeah, some of these people like Defiance of the Fall and whatnot, He Who Fights with Monsters, they put out 5 chapters a week. So, every weekday there's a chapter, and it's about 1.5 to 2.5K per chapter is generally what they're putting out. So they're putting it out. But the funny side and opposite side of it is that some of that expectation on release speed is warped, especially because of He Who Fights with Monsters and Primal Hunter and Defiance of the Fall, because all of these guys had been writing on Royal Road for between 2 to 3 years before they started going onto Amazon. So it was a case of every 3 months for a while, a book would come out. Every 3 months, a book would come out. And it wasn't because they were writing fast. It was because they had built up like 2 to 3 years worth of writing. Now, they were writing
Yeah, they had a
fast.
huge backlist at that
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're still fighting fast. I mean, writing like 10K a week is not anything to scoff at, but they had this giant backlist. But now in the last year and a half, most of them have caught up now. And the other side of the equation is you're seeing people like Shertaloon, I think Jeff Briggs has said it, Pirate Abba they are all taking longer and longer breaks. They're taking more regular breaks. Because that level of output can only go on for so long before people burn out, and there's only so much that you can push out, Pirate Abba is the craziest. I mean, she's putting out 40 to 80,000 words every week,
That's
incredible. That's like amazing.
I know. So people tell me that I write, and I'm like,
So
Oh,
Gurmalati
wait.
said, you all speak like spreading your attention is a good thing, but I personally get frustrated when an author releases another series.
Oh, I totally get it.
Yeah,
I mean,
but that's like what Arun is saying. It's like from the
Isn't that
reader
what I said?
perspective versus
Yeah, like-
versus the author perspective. Yeah.
yeah, if
For us-
only
for us,
author
it's a good
brains were
thing.
so regimented,
Right.
I literally have a blog post about what happens. It's like I can write, and I'll write like about 1.5K in the book, and then I can sit there and I can try to write another 500 words, and it'll take me another 2 to 3 hours. Or I can stop and I can write another book, and I can maybe get another 1 to 1.5K out of that book in that 2 to 3 hours.
Exactly.
So and it feels, and sometimes if I push, right, I literally can have done it where I push to 4K, and the next day I have a hangover. But it's a creative hangover. I literally do not want to write anymore that day, and I can sit down and I will stare at the computer and go.
I find it depends also like what phase of the book I'm in too. So like if I'm in Act 3, then I feel like I'm in the finishing shoot. I don't want to work on anything else except finishing the book. But in the middle build, like in Act 2,
In the middle,
it's exactly
in the middle.
as you described, Thao, where you're like, okay, I'm just going to take a break now, and I could easily write 2,000 words on another project for whatever reason, right?
But it's like it's that other project that's just like that's tickling at your brain, and it's like, hey, it's like that meme of that dude who's walking with his girlfriend, and he sees like the sexy woman walking by.
Exactly, where he's like,
yeah, you just looking over your shoulder. It's like, oh, there's that other project, that thing that's like, ooh, that's so appealing.
I think Sanderson has set it's kind of like a wrong trend, and then he just takes a break for a COVID year and comes back with like 4 secret projects. And he just pulls back like stacks of books, and he was like, oh, here's book 1, here's book 2, 3, 4. And I was like, God, the crap, like Sanderson, how does anyone write that much?
Wait, but those were 4 standalones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but each was like a book on its own. Like I don't know, each one was like a 1,000+ page book on its own. It was just
I don't think there are 1,000+ pages, but
No,
there
they
are.
weren't. I've seen a couple of them in the bookstore. They're not that thick.
But still, it's like four separate projects. Like that's like Sanderson's version of taking a break from the Stormlight
Well,
archive. Is like,
his comment was
boom.
that all of these conventions are the ones that's killing his output. Like he's like, I didn't have to go to conventions, so I had all of this time.
Mhm.
And I'm
It's
like,
true. I mean, travel is really a big investment of time, right? So
But not just travel. It's like after all of us went to Worldcon, like I had such an amazing time, and that was one of those experiences that made me feel very validated as an author and as a creative. Like I even got to moderate a panel that Tao was on, which was such a fun time. Um, but at the end of it, like I could see my pictures, and like I go through my pictures, and it's like, first day, it's like just super hyped. Second day, still super hyped. Third day, I'm starting to die a little bit. Fourth day, holy shit, I look so tired. Fifth day, I'm done. like, like the amount of social interaction is really magical and really, um, it's powerfully motivating as like a creative person and as someone who's like connecting with readers and bloggers and other authors and what have you. But by the end of it, it's like you're done. Like you're just so drained on that like social
yeah, I
sort
do
of
feel like
extroverted way.
my social
And
battery went to like negative after
right,
Glasgow.
yeah,
I
and it's
don't.
like it takes a while for that to recharge. So I can imagine someone like Sanderson who's going to so many conventions, that kind of
Yeah,
thing
I don't
really
mind
drains you.
the social battery bit. I'm more of an ambivert, I've realized, than a lot
Yeah,
of authors. So it still drains me, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
it doesn't drain me as bad. What kills me is the con crud afterwards.
right,
And it's just like, oh God, oh great, I'm going to get silk again.
yeah.
And everyone at the convention doesn't kill me, I have a kid.
It's like you
School
come
season
home and
comes
he's just like,
along,
it's like, hey
I'm
dad,
getting this
welcome
anyway.
home. Yeah, and then he just like sneezes in your face. It's like, great, I miss this so much.
that's
Oh,
kind
they
of like
love to share their germs. Yeah.
Oh, they do.
Oh my
All
God.
like I got back from the UK, and my oldest just like literally coughed in my mouth, and I'm like, the fuck, dude? like I'm trying to teach him like cough into your arm, and he's just like, no, I'm just gonna not even turn my head. I'm just gonna cough straight into your mouth, and I'm like, thank you for this wonderful returning home gift. I appreciate it so much.
I think
But
that's one of the kind of like pet peeves of mine. Even when you have these book conventions, you always have it in like cities like I don't know, like Atlanta has like whole bunch of conventions in there. Salt Lake City, Utah, like Sanderson does it because it's close to home. You get stuff in like Washington State, but I don't know, for some reason the entire East Coast gets ignored. There's nothing in New York, there's nothing in New Jersey, Philadelphia, Boston. It's like zero. You
Wait,
New
never
York
get a
has
Boston has ReaderCon. New York City has New York City Comic Con, right?
well, Comic Con. I mean, I've been to Comic Con pretty much every year for the past like
yeah
6 years, and you probably get like one author, and probably like one of the real popular author, and you have to pay like $250 to just get a ticket. You don't get fantasy authors. You don't get any indie authors in New York City.
yeah
I mean, you have a con in Glasgow. I mean, like, why not have it in New York City?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, come on, people like East Coast. Like, why does East Coast always gets on the back seat when it comes to I don't know, like LitRPG or like Cultivation con, even indie
I mean,
fantasy con.
Atlanta, like we were saying, how so many of the movies are being made in
Well, they
Atlanta
have
these days.
Dragon Con, right?
Yeah,
So
Dragon
Atlanta,
Con.
that's the
Yeah,
big one.
Well, they're running the LitRPG con in where is it? Denver?
What is
Is
that
it
one called?
Denver, Colorado? Yeah, Denver, Colorado. Yeah, Colorado Springs. Yeah, that's this year. So I think they decided to put it there because it's in the middle of the country. So they're like, okay, everyone can fly in, and it's all in the center. And I'm like, I'm still flying in from another country. God damn
Yeah.
it!
I mean, it's not too bad from going from Ontario to Colorado. So it's literally just called LitRPG Con
Yep.
in Denver in
Yeah.
July 2025.
Yep. I'm probably making it there. You know,
Yeah.
it's I haven't sat down and done the math of every place that I have to do because it's like, oh, these things are
Isn't
expensive.
there a FanX in Denver in July also?
You can do both.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well stay. Like, do both of them.
I was actually thinking of doing Gen Con too, but it's like, which is 2 weeks ahead, and then there's what do you call that? Then there's Worldcon again in
Seattle.
Seattle, and then there's Dragon Con. I literally showed my wife all 4 of those, and she looked at it and went, "You have like 2 weeks break in between all of these. You're gonna die." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe we don't."
So Julia, FanX is July 3rd to 6th, and then the LitRPG Con is July 18th to 20th. So they're
I
very
mean, you
close.
know, you could have an extended stay in Colorado.
Yeah. Colorado's beautiful, man.
We did it for 2 summers in a row. Like, we stayed in Colorado Springs for the summer.
I don't know. I just feel you need to add more points to your constitution.
I need so many points in my constitution.
Your vitality is weak. You haven't. You don't have a balanced build. You should probably have.
There is a reason all of my shows, all my books have magical healing. There is a reason for that. It's called wish fulfillment.
Yes.
The ultimate wish fulfillment for the author, right? Like
Julia just wants to like kill shit in San Francisco with a sword, you know. I apparently want to be a detective in a mushroom city, so wish fulfillment, man.
So Julia, just a quick question: have you seen the TV show Wu Assassins?
Yes, because I like Louis Tan.
That happens in San Francisco, right? Or no?
It's in Vancouver. That's not San Francisco.
Vancouver. Okay, sorry about that. So,
no, I mean, it's like pretend San Francisco.
It's pretend San Francisco.
Like, they probably have like a shot of like the Golden Gate Bridge and whatever, but then actually filmed in Vancouver.
Yes. It was like that show Charmed, right? With the 3 witch sisters. That was filmed in Vancouver, but it was set in San Francisco. I think Wu Assassins had a lot of interesting things going on, but I don't know that the special effects worked for me. I felt like the visual effects kind of let me down as a watcher.
I mean, I'm looking at like a poster right now, and the poster is like all about like whatever magic system is going on in this show. Like, there's a lot of like, it looks like a snake or something, like a snake ghost. What is it? What is like the VFX in this? Is it like supernatural creatures, or what is it?
Yeah, and there's like colored lights and this kind of thing. I don't know. It wasn't persuasive. I mean, the cast is very good, but and the martial arts itself was good.
Yeah. So just like replace all of that, like get the cast and the martial arts, and then just like adapt the Phoenix Hoard.
I think it's pretty good, like a play on the chosen one trope.
Yes.
You don't really see that too often in TV shows. You see it quite like a lot in books. But that was a pretty good show. I really like the cast. I really like the characters, the way show was made. But then it's again one of those shows which I really liked, which never had an ending. I think it got canceled.
Well, they made like a little movie after the shows. Did you see the movie?
No, I haven't. I still have it in my
I
Netflix
wonder if
save
I didn't
list.
watch it, but I wonder if it resolved some of the open loops from the end of the season.
Okay, the way season 1 ended was pretty good. I was kind of like, oh my god. I was like, yeah. And then it got cancelled, and I was like, yeah, screw you, Netflix.
It's like all these lovely cancellations. That's why I hope if anyone watched The Expanse TV shows or TV show, there's 9 books in the book series, and then there's 6 seasons in the TV show. But there's like between book 6 and 7 in the book series, there's like a 30-year time jump, and then there's this sort of like final trilogy, like book 7, 8, 9. And I'm like, I really would love for them to just like use the same characters, wait like 10 years until they age a little bit more, and then make 3 films to like close out the Expanse. Would be amazing. Or just
Given
like
how far behind Hollywood got after the writer's strike and COVID,
Right,
that probably
right.
could happen, right?
Yeah. Or just like you don't have to wait for them to like actually get older. You can just make them look older, because that's totally possible too. But yeah, that's like my dream. I think is like.
I mean, if they started trying to put it together right this second, I think you'll get it in 10 years, kind of thing. That's how slow Hollywood is in general, unfortunately.
Yeah, that Jeff Bezos money. They saved it. Amazon saved it. So it's like, come on, just make some movies out of it.
If they had taken just a small proportion of what they spent on Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
Exactly. Yeah. And that show is like still a hot mess, but
I hear season 2 is better. I haven't seen it. I hear it's better.
Right. But it's like it's okay, but season 1 was rough.
Season 1 was the reason why I never finished it, because of season 1. I watched like I think 2 episodes and I was like, oh.
My wife has watched like both seasons with me, and then I'm like, you give me shit for wanting to watch one 3-hour Lord of the Rings movie. Quit it. Quit it.
I used to compulsively watch the Lord of the Rings films, right? Like when I was in law school, I would just watch the annotated as a way of like relieving stress. And my husband could always tell, because like I would say something at dinner and he'd be like, have you been watching the annotated Lord of the Rings again? Because it was like the director's cut, right? So I would always be like, oh, Orlando Bloom broke his foot in the filming of this section.
Oh my God. It's like Viggo Mortensen, when he kicked a helmet, he broke his toe.
Yeah, it's just like very entertaining.
It's probably like a controversial thing. I like the Lord of the Rings movies, but I just can't watch the director's cut. It's just too long. I was just like, come on.
I don't know if I
indulged it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know that I set a time limit for something like Lord of the Rings. Like, I mean, I used to reread the novels and I read like the footnotes at the end, and the only thing I skipped was the songs.
You're better than me. There's a chunk of the Lord of the Rings that I have never read the full one, and it's when Frodo and Sam are running through the mountains, and there's this section of it that's about this thick, literally, that is just descriptions of the mountains and nothing else, realistically, with maybe 2 or 3 lines of actual plot. And I'm just like, no, I'm not reading this. Flip, 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 flip.
You know, when I was in Skye, I took a picture of this mountain range and immediately I thought of that passage.
And Julia's just like, it makes my heart sing. Tao's like, I just can't. I just want to die. This is terrible. I love the Lord of the Rings books, but it's like there are sections where, I mean, I think it's like books from a different time, you know? It's like you go back 100 years, things are going to read very differently. And then where we are now, we got like LitRPG and progression fantasy and all this very like fast, snappy stuff.
I remember seeing some writer was talking about how writing for modern day is different. And part of it is because we are such a visual culture now. Like we don't have to, someone writing in the 1920s, if they were writing about the Empire State Building, they would have to go and describe the Empire State Building quite detailed, because no one, the vast majority of people had never seen it. So you can't just say the Empire State Building, or you have to describe what it looks like, or what's the Paris's kind of
like the Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower, right? You have to describe that. I can't just say Eiffel Tower and you guys know what it looks like, right? But now we can just say it looked like the Eiffel Tower, right. Or a version of an Eiffel Tower, or it was a space needle that pointed up to the sky. we all have an
That's
image of
true.
that.
There's like a shorthand that
Yeah.
is a little bit more universal because of the readily available visual, representations everywhere.
And even if someone
Yeah.
doesn't know what something looks like, they can probably just go up and search it immediately and then have that like associative reference. But for most of us, it's like we have those associative references already ingrained in our heads of like,
I mean, I was very grateful for YouTube during lockdown because you couldn't really travel and you needed to know like, well, how does this street look or how does it feel? Like what,
yeah.
so you would do like the walkthrough feature on Google Maps or you would just
I
like
remember you
go watch
telling
the
me, you and Ken
YouTubes.
telling me about like there are like some amazing like just videos of people walking through like Tokyo and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
The best was like if they
so
stopped
good.
at like a 7-Eleven and they just like showed you through the window how good their 7-Eleven is in Tokyo is ridiculous.
7-Elevens in North America are a shame.
It's
Have
just
you
sad.
ever been to a 7-Eleven in Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
7-Eleven in Japan is amazing.
It's so good.
Japan, Taiwan.
Even the one in Hawaii is better than the mainland.
It's because of like the Asian diaspora in Hawaii. They're like we cannot stand for this.
We have Asian
bullshit.
diaspora in California, but our 7-Eleven is terrible.
Yeah,
know,
don't know.
You want to go and increase sales of 7-Eleven? Go look at what Japan is doing. Bringing me some okonomiyaki and all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Make
I
it
just
so
want
much
the egg
better.
salad sandwich on the milk bread. Like would be basic.
Oh.
But they said they were going to switch to the vendor that supplies the Japanese 7-Eleven, so maybe there's a rollout in the mainland coming soon.
Oof. Hopefully, man.
That would be so good. But then you guys, can we have it up in Canada first?
Do you guys have 7-Eleven in Canada?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Is
It's
it as
not-
terrible as in the US?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There's nothing worthwhile.
It is like there is like stuff like hot dogs on a spit that look like they've been there for far too long. There's just like a horrible selection of food and just like
Yeah.
cool. There's like some donuts and baked goods that look like they've like you like for kids, for anyone who has kids and you buy them like fake food toys, like it starts to develop that sheen of something that looks plastic. 7-Eleven is rife with that. So
Yeah, like their pizza. I used to know a girl who would eat the pizza at the 7-Eleven, and I was horrified.
Oh no, that's terrible.
See, I kind of feel it's a good. I don't know. What I personally feel is that this is one of the big reasons why I personally feel an adaptation can never be as good as a book. I think what Tao said, like, is like when you describe an Empire State Building or a huge building, you just look at it and you know how it looks like. But when you read about it, you kind of have a fictionalized or maybe like an ideal version of that building in your imagination. It may not actually be reality, but whatever is written is, I don't know, pretty much always better than the real thing. This is, I mean, I tend to avoid watching adaptations of books I have read. It's with extreme reluctance. One of the few exceptions was the Lord of the Rings movies. But TV shows, I pretty much stay away from. I watched like bare minimum of Game of Thrones. I just stayed away from it. I just didn't feel it did justice to the books. But yeah, as a medium for conveying imagination or conveying fantasy, books are by far, in my opinion, a better medium to convey imagination. Like if you want to like your imagination, if you want to give it to your reader, like words are like a far better medium than movies. I think probably the only exception to this rule, I don't know, willing to die on this hill, is probably like Jurassic Park. That for me is probably the only movie which is equal to the book, or at least even I'll agree.
I'm
It's
rereading the
maybe
book right now.
slightly.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's
But
funny because I'm
the
about to
original
do a
Jurassic Park
rewatch.
movie.
Yeah,
I was
for
gonna
me,
say,
Jurassic
Blade
Park.
Runner.
Go ahead, Tom.
Blade
Sorry.
Runner is so much better than do androids dream of electric sheep? I don't like the book at all. Blade Runner though.
Yeah, I agree with that one too.
Yes. I've never, just to answer Grimaldi, Grimalati, sorry. I've never read The Three Body Problem. It's on my TBR pile, which keeps on getting piled up higher every time I
And
go
those
to a
books are
meeting.
huge. You know, they're like
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I bought the audiobook on it thinking, oh, I'm going to go and do this on an audiobook. And the audiobook narrator on that put me to sleep.
oh
And I was just
no,
like,
That's too bad. Oh no.
that's a
I'm
bummer.
like this. I don't know what it was. It might be just the initial part is really dry, but it was just like I've heard so many good things about this book. Why is it so dry? And the narrator's voice was not great. I was just like, no, I need to read this. So I've got the book and it's sitting on my TBR pile.
Yeah.
But my TBR pile is probably my physical TBR pile is probably like 200 plus books long. I'm not even going to talk about my electronic one.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
No. But I will say, like, Grimaldi has, like, the book. It isn't dry. It's like there are some parts that are quite dense in terms of like, I would say, the science and stuff that drives a lot of that book and that series. But Grimaldi was asking or saying like, I can't understand how they're making a fourth book. I don't know what the fourth book is necessarily. I know there was like a spin-off that was written by someone else, sort of like a fan fiction that became like an official part of the canon, which is really cool. But that book is like, there's a specific character who like something happens to them, and then this book, when they like disappear from the series, this book covers like what happened to them, which is really interesting, I think. But I don't necessarily know how they could make like a fourth book that is a continuation of the trilogy. And they speaking of adaptations, they did a TV adaptation of that.
Yeah, my husband watched the TV adaptation, and I have to admit, the science was a little bit. I struggled with it, you know, so I couldn't quite get into it. And that's actually when I thought, you know, the book might be better for me, because then there's like a slowness, right, in how you process your reading, where you can pause and be like, okay, how does that work? You know?
Yeah,
It's a fantastic book, but then like I struggled with the three body problem. I had to read the book at least like couple of like more than a couple of chapters. I had to go back and reread it just to understand the science and how it fits within that macro plot line. It's kind of what I would term like a hard sci-fi. It's not like a soft sci-fi like Martha Wells, like you just read like a murder bot series and then you kind of like breeze through it. It's kind of like a normal drama set in a sci-fi world, even an Expanse. It's a soft sci-fi, but three body problem is a hard sci. You really need to understand the science, especially the solution which they prepare and how they get things done. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but those kind of series, it's extremely hard to get it right on Audible. You really have to like sit down, close your eyes, go into like a meditative state, and kind of like listen to the audiobook just to understand what they're doing. And the problem with audiobook is it's a bit difficult, or at least from my perspective, it's a bit difficult to just like turn back the pages, go back and reread like certain paragraphs that you can find. That's not as convenient in Audible as with the. I was a bit surprised they made like an adaptation of Three Body Problem. Personally, I thought I don't know, one of the most difficult series I could think of to ever adapt to a TV screen. I haven't watched it, but I kind of like feel it's very hard to do that book justice. I mean, even an Audible doesn't do it justice as much as like reading a physical book. That, I don't know, like Malazan Book of the Fallen.
or
It's
we
a
could just
book
get
really.
a PhD in physics, and
It,
then that
it,
was
it is.
That seems like an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
It's very
I mean, my mom is a physics professor. I suppose I could call her, right?
Yeah, but then at some point she'll just be like, Julia, like, come on. You're gonna call your mom how often during all?
Yeah, and
three
I was a
books?
liberal arts major. It's like worthless, right? Like, I cannot really communicate on that level with her.
I thought you paid to learn how to read. Come on. God damn it.
Sometimes it's just the way the authors prepared it. Like I had like a huge doubt. I mean, when you watch sci-fi series or read sci-fi books, you have the light speed engines, right? Where you just turn on the light speed engines and you just go like faster than light. You just like cross galaxies, and then you have the sublight engines. And I kind of had like a curious thought. What exactly is a sublight engine? It's just like a normal engine. It's the engine on your car. That's a sublight engine. There's literally no difference between the one on your car or the one on an airplane or the one on a, I don't know, like a SpaceX rocket. It's all like sublight engine. We don't just call it sublight engines, but that's sci-fi. It kind of puts an additional spin to it. And you kind of feel that, oh my God, that's a sublight engine. That sounds so sophisticated, so nice. But then, yeah, I don't know. My car runs on a sublight engine. I don't
You
give a
should
shit
start.
about
You should
that.
start referring it like that. Like you go to the mechanic and be like, "Hey, can you fix my sublight engine?" They're like, "What the?"
You need a bumper sticker that says that my car runs on a supply engine.
It's kind of like if you, I mean, if you think of it in a way that you just describe it to the, I mean, if you're just going downhill, you are engaging gravity drive. That's pretty much it. Like you're on a
I
sublight
mean, my
engine.
bicycle also does that.
Yeah, you are just engaging gravity drive. Like that's it. You're just.
I would just love to like every time Arun gets into a car or rides a bicycle, he's like, "All right, I'll turn on the sublight engine," or he's on a bicycle just engaging gravity drive. Sci-fi fan.
I just rely on the hand wavium. Like, I don't need to know how the spaceship flies. Right?
Yeah,
And like,
yeah.
it's like in The Expanse. Like, I don't need to know how this world works. It works this way.
Yeah, it's just like whatever it is. It's just like I think there's a certain level of over explanation that you can get into, which just kind of like ruins the immersion and the fun of it. You know, there's only like a certain level that you need to get into things.
Yeah, I feel like as long as it's consistent, that's good enough for me as a reader or a watcher. That like this rule is the same every time, right?
Yeah. I don't know what happened to Tao.
He's like a swirly ball of light.
He just vanished. He just vanished on us.
I think he just went into an alternate dimension.
No, he's checking on his he's checking on his KDP launch.
He's refreshing his KDP every 10 seconds. Yeah, but I think it's like it's a difficult balance to kind of manage with a book is like getting too much into the nitty-gritty of things.
Yeah, I mean, I do like for magic systems, I do like a harder magic system, and I think like Brandon Sanderson is so great at, you know, he has that whole series of essays on magic systems, and
Yeah,
I appreciate almost magic as a science, right?
me too. Tao said in the private chat that his laptop is running out of battery, so I think his computer just died. We'll wait until he gets back, and then we'll close out and we'll say goodbye to everybody. Get your plug, Tao.
I know, I'm telling him like, go plug in your machine.
He could have just gone and plugged it in. There he is. He's back. We didn't see your comment. We didn't see your comment in the private chat about your laptop running out of battery.
Yeah.
So I told everyone you went to go refresh your KDP, like
Yeah.
just to check your
Checking
launch.
numbers.
Tao's cultivation.
I've been refreshing the main page. I'm like, well, at the rank 100 on Amazon.com, and I'm like, just a
Nice.
little bit more. Come on.
So close.
100.
Come
I
on,
know.
people.
It's like,
Anyone watching, go bump that up. Let's do it for Tao.
yes. But no, I'm really happy with where we are with it. I wasn't expecting it to do much more than this. If it does, I'll be really happy.
Mhm.
We've been selling the ebook on Start Publishing and audiobook too for about 2 months already. So it's like, oh yeah, Amazon orders are extra.
This is
So it's always an interesting thing when you're doing it that way too. But then I don't have to give money to Jeff Bezos, which is always very nice. And Audible. Really, I don't care about they can take 30%. I mean, that's a reasonable-ish amount considering the amount of marketing that they do on the back end for me. Audible, on the other hand,
yeah, 60% is
Audible is
just
just mysterious and oppressive,
It is so depressive. It's why we started selling all our audiobooks on our site beforehand. It's just like you're taking 60%, 60 to 75% of all my income beforehand. For what? What are you doing?
Well, and I think it's such a nice perk for your fans that they can get it a couple months early, right?
Yeah, we generally do it 1 month earlier, but this time we're doing it about 2 months earlier, just earlier. So it works out really well, and it's great for fans, and they know they're supporting me directly on it too, which is always really good. It's a lot cheaper than trying to buy signed copies and shipping down from Canada, as Adrian probably knows.
Oh yeah, Canadian shipping costs are horrendous.
That's true. I've sent ARCs to Canada, and it's like $33 or something.
No, but like it's more to ship something within Canada than it is to ship something to the United States.
Sometimes,
yeah.
That's wild.
So, yeah, it's absurd. So,
well, I used to have to do shipping stuff for people all across Canada, and you have to be very careful if you're shipping to Canada and put a little disclaimer that I can't do flat rate shipping for everything, because there are some places that we will not do flat rate shipping for, because we have very remote locations where it's like $90 to $100 for a small package, because it's they have to fly in a small plane into that location to drop it off.
Wow.
Canada.
Yeah, we have some very remote places. I think there's a place in Yukon called Old Crow where there's like 500 people at any time, and it's the closest location is like another 5 to 6 hour drive, and that's from Dawson City, which is like already 3,000 people, maybe during summer. It's like 300 people, not during summer.
It's like deliveries by dog sled,
So I think you need to channel your inner wooing, get your cultivation up to speed, and then be like the wind and start delivering books yourself.
Yeah.
That's probably.
I would love to be able to do that.
That would be incredible.
I know. Considering some of the things that he gets to do, and just where he just, pulls himself apart and reappears anywhere he wants to, where the wind is connected, it's just a cheat. I want to be able to do that. I would save so much on airfare and eat so much good food.
Oh my god. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this up, but I just want to say thank you to the three of you for joining me, and to everyone who's watched or is watching. And Tao, if you could just let everyone know where they can get the book and the formats that they can get the book in.
Okay. Well, everything's now on Amazon or Audible, pretty much. They are also available at your local bookstore. Technically, you probably will have to ask them to order it in if you want to, but it is there. Also, of course, it's also on Amazon. I do love Kindle Unlimited. It doesn't pay me as much, but I don't care. I mean, what my viewpoint is about all of this stuff: read whatever is most convenient for you. Mm-hmm. Any reader is better than no reader, and in many cases, and so. If it's a library, if it's, a used book, if it's, Kindle Unlimited, go read for it. I think a lot of us write because we like to tell stories, and having people read those stories and see what our little crazed minds are up to is always a tickle.
I completely agree. Yeah. I think most
KU
writers write for the love of it.
Yeah, and KU is so good for a longer series, right? Especially in your case, it's like 10 books ahead of this release.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, as I said, and with these books, they're very long. They're long enough that I make a decent amount of money on KU. If the book isn't very long, then obviously it doesn't make much sense to have it in KU. And in many cases, I don't have my books, like The Adventures of Brad. I don't make any money on in KU because they're too short, so I don't have them in there. So if I make it available, it's because I'm making enough money that it makes sense.
Mhm.
Or, yeah.
Well,
Tao,
yeah,
where can-
before we wind up, like I have like a big question for Tao. What's happening in book 12? Like, spill it now. I can't wait for you to finish writing the series. Like, come on.
Wait,
I'm
be
like a typical
patient.
reader. Like, finish book 11, I need book 12 now. What's happening?
Go read their page. It's all on Patreon.
Go get on the Patreon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
book 12 is out on Patreon already.
Yeah, fuck your mortgage. Go to Patreon.
Geez, I can't sell my house, man. Like, the mortgage isn't mine. Like, yeah, I would get on Patreon, but like, yeah, it's
Slippery
what's
slope.
the- yeah,
It's a
I'm,
very
I'm,
slippery slope.
I'm just asking for all the 1,000 readers who are watching this
Book 12
video right now, and everyone's like looking forward to it.
Yeah.
What's happening? Like, what's going to happen with Wu Ying? Like, yeah,
it resolves the big question of whether or not Wu Ying it ascends, right? It's always, and I think it's not only just whether or not he ascends, but with what Tao. That's what book 12 is all about, really. And the entire Thousand Lee series is, as much of as it is a progression fantasy, it is very much a personal story about Wu Ying finding his Tao, finding what it is that makes him tick, and what makes him, stronger to keep delving into, right? Who we are and what we are and what we believe in. Those are the things that give us strength. And the entire book 12 book series is just about Wu Ying finding his answer to that question. And by finding that answer, he can then ascend. Everyone's answer is different, which is why everyone's Tao is different. And so that's always been the 1,000 Lee series to me, right? It's always been a personal journey for Wu Ying. It's not, the progression fantasy part and the cultivation is just how he's done it, right? It's the layering on it, but the story itself is Wu Ying's personal journey. So book 12 has to end with answering that question. Just like, this is an apocalypse, book 12 has always had to end with answering the question of what the quest is, and what's John's final response to that. It's always, you start with a question, or what your goal is, and you there's a promise as an author that you have to complete. If you don't fulfill that promise, then you have angry readers throwing things at you at conventions.
Are you satisfied, Arun? You okay? All right. Tao, where can people find you online, my friend?
You can find me most easily on my website, mylifemytao.com. I'm on Blue Sky and Threads, and Starlet Publishing is where you can buy the books itself, and obviously Amazon, and some of my books are in all the other places like Audible and Kobo and the rest.
All right. And Julia, what about you?
I think probably you can find my books anywhere books are sold. We have Blood Jade in hardcover in bookstores right now, and Ebony Gate in paperback. Seattle Slayers is in Kindle Unlimited, so for those who are in that ecosystem, all 4 books is complete.
And what about where can people find you online?
I'm primarily on Instagram now. I've given up on Twitter, and so I would say you would look for me. Julia Vee writes on Instagram.
Awesome. And Arun, what about you, buddy?
yeah, I can't think of a good reason why people would want to find me, but yeah, I'm on Twitter at Jack Claver. If not, just go to FanFiAddict.com website and you would find me as one of the reviewers out there. But yeah, if you don't have anything good to say about me, better don't find me.
Just don't look for me, man. Don't look. All right. And I'm Adrian M. Gibson on pretty much every social media platform there is. And you can go check out Mushroom Blues, my debut novel, in paperback, hardcover, ebook. It's on Kindle Unlimited as well, and soon to be out in audiobook. And if you want a little bit extra, there's an official soundtrack for the book, as well as a Spotify playlist if you want to have a chapter by chapter
And an SPFPO finalist.
Yeah,
Forgot to mention
yeah.
that, Adrian.
Thanks, buddy.
Like, yeah, that's like a big thing, right? Like, if you
Thank
don't
you.
know, watch, like, go follow SPFPO. Like, Adrian is a
Spiff
finalist with a
Box.
couple of Spiffbo, like amazing authors. And yeah, congrats, Adrian. Hope
Thank
you
you, buddy.
win
I
everything.
appreciate that. Even if I don't win, I'm like, I made it this far, and I'm very happy about that.
Oh, yeah.
All the other finalists are very, very cool people. So we've got a Discord together, and it's a lot of like anxiety over reviews and shit, but it's very fun at the same time.
You made
we're
it further
anxious
than
together.
me.
Did you apply for Spiffbo?
I did. Book one with 1,000 Lee. It never got through the first culling.
Oh no, I'm sorry, buddy.
I know
I'm
it's
sure
like,
Liz
isn't it
just
like
affected you.
300 books from the get-go? It's like a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
books.
It's a lot of
It's
books,
like-
and you never know who you're going to get, and it doesn't,
Yeah.
you know, you don't know whose taste it is, and
Mhm.
it's, you know, it's the good books do rise, but also good books get cut, right? So it's a little bit of a luck of the draw kind of thing too.
Mhm.
So
I'm
like
very
any-
excited for these 10 finalists. Like, I want to
know.
read all
Yeah.
of them. Yeah. I
Generally,
mean, I
the
already
most-
have read
There's
Mushroom
even
Blues, so I like only have 9 to go.
Yeah, there's a middle grade book in there too, which is really cool.
Yeah. The
Oh.
SPF split bars generally, you know, the shortlist is good books worth reading for sure.
So go check out that one if you want.
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing that up, Arun. And thank you all for watching. Very much appreciate it. And very grateful to hang out with the three of you. And just another congratulations to Tao for the release of his new book. Go buy it. Go just like you got 11 books in that series alone. I don't even know how many you have in System Apocalypse as well. But you got plenty to choose from. There's a lot there for you. So go support that wonderful human being, and go support Julia as well. And then go read Arun's reviews on FanFiAddict, where he dumps on Sun stuff and then shows a lot of love for Tao's books. All right. Well, thank you all, and have a wonderful night. And thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.